Oh, Chicago.
Here in
Someone has to
Chicago.
ask you.
It is
Yeah.
really nice. It's a
Yeah.
chilly. I think it was in the 50s just now when I took Ernie out, but it's a bright sun. It's nice and warm in the sun. It's really pretty. This is my favorite time of year in Chicago.
So the
Cold.
only time you like
No.
there.
Jessica
Cold.
says no.
No.
Cold, too cold?
I have a hoodie on. I still have my hoodie on. This is BS.
But
Yeah.
you're
Well, it's
not
better.
wearing the parka.
I'm not wearing the parka. But I mean, it's almost, I don't know. It's almost June. It'd be low degrees outside.
I'm trying to remember, when did we have the snow? Was it the last day of April or the first day of May?
Probably the first day of May.
Yeah. That's nuts.
I know. I'm just being a Debbie Downer. And Andrew's in San Francisco right now. He's like sending me pictures of how beautiful it was, and I'm like, we should just move. I'd love to be on the.
Wow.
Well, but San Francisco I don't like because it smells like pee. A little downtown, all of it smells like pee.
I thought that was just you, Brent. I mean, it's the entire area?
Oh, so does Chicago, and so does everywhere I go smells like pee. Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, I
Richie
get it
might be
now.
onto something.
Yeah. I know
Um,
it's fun.
yeah, San Francisco's a great city. There are a lot of homeless people in San Francisco.
And
And a lot of
they all
weirdos.
work for startups.
Uber. Yeah, they're all Uber drivers.
Even more than New York,
Yeah.
I noticed. Like New York has always had like very obvious homeless population. We went to we've been my dad and stepmom live outside of San Francisco, so we've been to visit a few times, and we go into the city. We're like, wow, there is so many more of them. How did they all end up here?
I think we might have the most, though, here in Portland. We got a lot of homeless people.
Really?
I don't know. We'll have to look it up.
Do you just call them baristas, or what do you?
No, they're millennials, actually.
Oh, so they are baristas.
Yeah.
Well, Portland's so spread out, you don't notice it as bad. You know, it's like San Francisco, they are all downtown. They're all like in this real crowded area.
Yeah.
Dozens, packs of them.
Why is that? Is that because of their policies? Like, do homeless people just live large over there, or?
Yeah. They don't get thrown out. The city's very tolerant. They're allowed to camp all over the place. And it's a nice place to be, right? I mean, if you're going to be homeless.
Yeah, New York
Portland's
cops
a
they
big herd.
throw homeless people out of everywhere.
Yeah. Chicago, same thing. They come through in buses certain days and times of the year, and they just herd them up onto buses and shepherd them out. Take them off to shelters.
Yeah, I've seen in the winter times here when it's like 10 degrees outside, and there's somebody taking over a bus station with like 8 blankets, and it's crazy. This is not a good place to be homeless. Not at all.
Oh,
No.
yeah, it blows.
Buy a bus ticket and just go west.
It's not even a nice place to have a home. You know, at the end of the
Yeah, you have to wear parkas inside.
Yeah.
It says Brent, who's moving south. I mean, west.
Yeah, south and west. It was funny. So we go to Houston for the SQL side to Houston, and we used to live there, spent a lot of time there, really loved it. And the first 2-3 days, it was nice, beautiful weather, low humidity, and Erica and I are looking at each other going, man, the cost of living is cheap, the restaurants are fantastic, you get great, huge housing and all this. Maybe we should move back. And then the 4th day, the humidity struck. And it was, nope. Out of here.
Yeah, that was my opinion too. I landed, went to the event, went to the hotel, went back to the event, got right back on a plane. I'm like, that was good enough. That was good.
Plus, the day before the event, there was quarter to golf ball size hail. We got hail at the college where we were having the event. And I was trying to go out to my car, but I was afraid to run to it because of big old golf ball size hail coming down.
Should have just
that'll
put that
be
yellow
fun.
shirt over your head.
Here comes the sun. God, that shirt was ugly.
That
So
kind of,
people, feel free to get your questions in too. Now's the chance to get your questions in. I know everybody's always awkward and bashful, like going, "Oh, I don't want to type my question first." You should totally type your question in first, because once they get rolling, then by the time you get in late, then we don't end up answering your questions.
yeah, people are being real shy today. Oh,
Story.
Oh, there's 2.
You just have to prompt them.
and once you prompt them, they start asking questions about replication and always on and.
Oh.
We are
SSRS.
here for you, people.
But not those.
Free.
Not those.
Hi, Gregory.
We've got some updates coming up for SP Blitz, right? No,
what?
just sent out an email, yeah.
Yeah. We just did SP Blitz version 51, and so we do the wrong kind of version numbers. You should never do version numbers this way, but it's just so that people, when they call in SQL, we want to be able to let them compare version numbers really easily. But if I could go back in my life, I would go back and redo that. There's not a lot of things I would redo. That and hooking up with my college girlfriend for the fifth time, expecting things to be different. No, she's still absolutely crazy. But SP Blitz 51 does Amazon RDS. It's compatible with the SQL Server there, and it's always had the ignore priorities above parameter, like show me only the priorities that are super urgent. But now we kind of reclassified the priorities, so you can run it with ignore priorities above 50 and just get the most important stuff that could be like horribly broken on your server.
Semantic versioning. I'll send you a link.
Yeah. Semantics, good, no good though. They make this crappy antivirus software. It has all kinds of vulnerabilities. I don't want their versioning.
Yeah.
Don't put it on your database server.
Don't put it on your database server. I also got I should show Richie. I got an Amazon. I got my Internet of Things buttons. Dun dun dun.
What does that order?
Yeah.
These well, so they have the buttons that order stuff. I have those like by the toilet paper, the paper towels, and all that. So you just push the button, and then like within 2 days, the stuff shows back up. This one is programmable. You can make it do whatever you want. So I'm programming it to turn on all the VMs in our lab in Amazon, so I can just have it by my light switch, so that when I'm going to come into the office, I can hit the button, and then within a few minutes, the VMs are all up without me having to run a bunch of commands. So
Does it turn
it's actually going to wake me up to write more code. That's
Does it turn them back off too?
I see. I have 2 buttons.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun. Yes. One that turns them all on, and one that turns them all off.
Can I get 2 of those?
Cool.
Yeah. Is that sweet or what?
Off button.
After I get the scripting done, then I'll send everybody out links and go, okay, here you go. Go order buttons. They're $20 a pop, so it's totally worth it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It looks the same. You can put stickers on top of them. They come with little stickers, so you can label over.
On, off.
Pretty spiffy.
Don't mess that up.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about some merge replication. Paul asks, what are the ways to handle manual identity?
Oh man, Paul, you have a crappy job. So what are the ways to handle manual identity management for merge replication? So what you do is, so for identities, you start, when you only have 2 servers and you're dealing with merge replication, you start one at +1 and goes upwards, the other at -1 and goes downwards. The more servers that you add, the more complex you have to get. For example, you can start one at 1 and then go up by 2 so that it's hitting all the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You start another one at 2, and it goes up at 2, so it's 2, 4, 6, 8, and so forth. Then you do the same thing with negatives. The more servers that you have, the more complex this gets, and you start buying Bitcoin rigs in order to calculate prime numbers and all that kind of crap. You can also do ranges. You can start at the maximum of one identity and go in the other direction. It is just not pretty, the more identities that you have.
Use GUIDs.
GUIDs, yeah. I actually like GUIDs a lot for that.
All right. Gregory has a
Paul
question.
says, you are telling me when I said that he had a crappy job.
All right. Gregory has a question about detecting index fragmentation. He wants to know which is more accurate, dbcc config, maybe config, or system.dm, db index physical stats. I know the DMV is supposed to be more accurate in measuring across multiple files, but in my environment that isn't a factor. Which metric is more accurate, scan density or logical scan fragmentation?
Wow. That is a weird question.
Does it matter that much? I've never cared.
Yeah, no,
How accurate do you need it to be? Are you worried about like 51.1% versus 51.2% fragmentation? Like, I assume that you're only going to do some, or you're only going to act on this fragmentation at a whole number anyway. So, unless you're worried about like wildly different, results, and I wouldn't really sweat it. The sys.dmdb index physical stats function is the one that everything I've ever seen used to detect it, at least in modern versions of SQL. All the Hallengren scripts, maybe some other reindex tool that Brent likes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he says he
Else,
uses Ola Halligan's scripts, which is.
Why do you have to do anything else then?
I want to say that isn't DBCC show config deprecated? I'm not 100% positive. Yeah. So
if it's not deprecated, then it's like on the way out. It's not like it's one of those like SQL 2000-ish commands that DBCC pin table or whatever.
Grandpa told you about.
Yeah.
Tell your developer to stop pretending that they're the DBA, and if you're the DBA, you do defragmentation, index maintenance, and leave it alone.
And then don't actually do it, and save yourself a whole bunch of time.
Read Erik's blog about not reindexing at all.
To get that information, when you scan that DMV, it actually reads the tables. It'll do scans depending on what parameters you pass in. I don't want developers looking at that during the day, during business hours. You want to explain to them what it actually does behind the scenes, like that it reads huge quantities of large tables. So I just would say, hey, dude, if you want, I'll capture that after hours. Use Ola Hallingren scripts to just capture it after hours, but don't touch it during business days.
Revoke his access.
Yeah. All right. Question from Bill. Hey, is it possible to rename the underlying files and reattach a database in a restoring state?
Not in restore? What?
I think you can. I think you can if because I remember having to do something with this around log shipping. Like getting the examples right and all that, I would have no clue about like attaching in a database in a restoring state. But I just go try it. And if you run into problems with it, this is a great example of posting it on Stack Exchange. Go to dba.stackexchange.com and post what you're trying to do, and someone else can walk through the exact syntax. If you don't get a good answer within a day or two, shoot us an email. But I'm pretty sure that you can do that.
Scott also says you can.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Good, yeah.
Whoever
Because I
Scott
want to
is
have
on the
moved
internet.
log shipping. Yeah, he must be right? He's here. We only have smart people in our Q&A. He's here for the A, not as much for the Q. Yeah, I think I've done that for log shipping databases.
Gotcha.
Scott says I do it at least once a quarter. This isn't about your personal life, Scott. This is a work webcast. Congratulations, but.
Let's see. Let's move on to Nate Johnson. He says, how easy is it to rename a SQL Server, specifically a failover cluster virtual network name? I.e., the physical node names will remain the same, the Windows cluster name will remain the same, but the SQL virtual instance name or the cluster name needs to change. Thoughts?
I have never tried to do that.
You don't have to. You don't have to. There's an easy workaround. All you do is create a DNSC name. Create a DNSC name of whatever new name that you want, and you point it to the existing cluster's virtual name. Leave the cluster virtual name exactly the way it is. And then just create a DNSC name that points to that. And I'm saying this really quickly, but DNSC name, so the letter C and then name. Ask your systems administrators to create that for you. They're the Active Directory guys or DNS guys. It's so simple, takes 30 seconds. And then end users will never know that it's a different SQL server. And both names will continue to work forever.
But what if the problem is what if it's in the GUI, like in the failover cluster? Maybe that's why he needs to rename it. Maybe they're being crazy, and then they'll have two of the same.
Look at the GUI. Get out of there. No, I mean, and I love the GUI. I'm a big GUI kind of guy.
Let's see. Nate is also in a pickle. He looks like he's broken replication.
Good.
Sarah's not here.
You fixed replication.
Sounds like success does.
Where's the hammer? Fixed.
Yeah. So he says we broke replication, transactional replication. We tried a reinstitute with new snap and then canceled due to the CPU spiking. Now we're missing schema and data. How to recover besides a full reinstitute? We've got the schema synced up manually, but the missing data is turning out to be huge because some tables are millions of rows. Any recommendations?
So you can reinitialize, I think think with a backup, this is one of the, I truly don't do transactional replications. But what I would do is if you know that some data but not all data is there, you can insert it across yourself. You can do your own inserts and then just tell transactional replication, hey, we're good, you don't have to bother reinitialize. But you said that there's millions of rows missing, and then you have to put those rows back.
Oh.
That's the part that blows.
Yeah.
Unless you can get away with it and throw a filter on there to not put all the rows in. You could start small.
I like that. Filtered publication. Only the stuff that's current that people.
Nate Johnson is on a roll.
Oh.
In a roll.
He's on a roll. He goes another question. Yeah.
Not in a good role. He's poor guy. He's like having to post so many questions. And another thing, quick, I got to get these in before you guys close the webcast because this is all my homework.
I'll take one more from Nate. He says it's taking months longer than anticipated to prep SQL migration and new hardware to a 2005 to 2014 upgrade. Can I convince managers that a 2005 to 2008 R2 in place upgrade is a good idea to buy us more time and compliance?
No, in-place upgrades are the devil. Especially major versions like that run screaming into the night.
Plus, why do you want to go to 08 R2?
Oh, I think he wants to get under warranty support because he's worried about 2005 being out of support. And I get that, but
yeah, so you would have to upgrade to 2008 R2 and then to Service Pack 3. So you're looking at some pretty big jumps.
Yeah, that makes me nervous. This way with no backup plan if anything goes wrong.
Mm.
Well, so maybe to let him know what would be if right now he has a problem, he's on 2005 and he calls Microsoft. Are they going to tell him, sorry, shut the door in his face? Or are they going to make him pay extra money for help?
God, 2005, I don't even think they take support calls anymore. And it's not like, this is too, we were, a couple of us were joking around recently. It's like, how often do you really call Microsoft anyway, right? Do you really get on the phone with Microsoft a lot? Does it really matter that you're out of support? That's horrible for me to say, but if it's a production application, we only want to work on stuff that's in support. We don't take work on out of support databases unless it's an extra charge kind of thing. Yeah, you look at Erik, fist pumping. Yeah, that's tough. I would actually stand up a new VM, just a virtual machine in the meantime, assuming that you got those. If you can make that work performance-wise, that's what I would go for until they get the new hardware you want.
All right, a quick question from Samuel. He says, on production, do you agree that adding a login or taking a backup should require change control?
Don't you love it when people ask, do you agree? It's like this big leading question. Wouldn't you say that?
Nudge.
Leading question, Your Honor. All right, so we'll go through. We'll ask each person. From just as I'm looking at my monitor, Erik, would you go through change control if it involved adding a login?
Adding a login, it would depend on for what. If it was a new developer or a new DBA, I probably wouldn't go through change control for that. If it was for a new application, then I certainly would. Or something else that needed to access the server from outside, I might. What was the other part?
Backup of the database, was that what it was?
If you want to go through change control every time you take a backup, you're going to spend a lot of time with change control.
The only time that when you say take it, like if it's an out-of-band backup, maybe like if somebody wants to take a backup in the middle of the day, and it's going to slow down performance. But otherwise, I would hope that if you have to file a change control, so I think generally we're going no across here. But in terms of adding a login, it just depends on what it's for. If it's a read-only login that is deny data writer, then I'm kind of comfortable with it as long as it's not personally identifiable data. It's not like credit card data or social security numbers.
And if it is an out-of-band backup, you want to be looking at taking a copy-only backup, not a regular full backup.
Oh, that's a good point. Richie, how about you? Are the police coming for you? Is that what that is?
No.
They're coming for me, first of all.
Yeah. It used to be for you. Remember all the sirens you used to get, but now it's Erik.
The guy in Brooklyn.
All right. SP Blitz question. Bruno says, SP Blitz warns me that there are multiple log files on the drive and that this is not a performance booster because log file access is sequential, not parallel. But isn't this considered a best practice to minimize contention problems?
If it's sequential, then there's no contention.
There's a super rare edge case that Thomas Kaiser blogs about where they end up with a bunch of really small log files in order to... yeah, Eric's throwing his... It's just wildly rare, ridiculously crazy rare, where they have a whole bunch of really small log files in order to minimize log buffer writes. That's like in the million transactions a second territory. That's like a totally different world than what most of us out there deal with. Otherwise, it's, yeah.
You also have to put them all on separate drives.
Yeah.
All sorts of other stuff to them that you are not doing.
Solid state drives.
Yeah. In Oracle, it is a little bit different. Oracle will use multiple log files at once, but that's not a contention thing. That's a redundancy thing. So you can have multiple log files that get the same synchronous data pushed to them, but even that's not going to do much. SQL uses them, serially. It's not going to parallelize their log writes.
So SP Blitz does check for too many virtual log files.
Yes, it does. And I want to say we alert you around 1,000. I don't think 1,000 is bad, but we just want to give you the heads up before you hit some ridiculously bad number. So at 1,000, we're like, hey, maybe you should think about shrinking this log file, doing something about that.
Let's see. Question from Gregory. He says, is there a way to gradually move databases from one instance to a separate always-on availability group without any application changes? I would like to use an alias DNS record, but I think the movement would be all of the databases at once. I was hoping the alias record would just be the name of the AG listener, but I don't think both servers can use it at the same time to allow gradual migration.
Could you use multiple connection strings on that?
Yeah. Keep going. Keep explaining there.
Oh God, I don't. I just know that exists. So with availability groups, you can use connection strings for different activities. So you have like one for reads and one for writes and one for everything else. So I think you might be able to do something where you set up, assuming it's .NET, use the multi-subnet failover. Goes true. Yeah, so assuming that it's a .NET application and you can use that stuff, you should be able to use different connection strings to push different activities to different servers or indoor databases, which is probably what I would do if I had a real job.
And then you can put each connection string can use a different DNSC name, and then you can gradually move those apart to different listeners if you like.
Yeah. Thanks for smartening that up for me.
Ooh, and then when a big database loves, or a big query loves a small database very much,
it goes to jail for a long time.
Question from Sean. How can TempDB be placed on a local SSD in a failover cluster? System is 2-node Hyper-V, slow SAN, SQL 2012 standard.
That kind of dive bombs for me when you say Hyper-V or really any sort of virtualization, because then you have that machine tied to that host, and then you would have to, on every host, have that thing set up for that VM, and it gets messy. Get a better SAN. Sorry.
Yeah, guys, like so often you'll see people saying, "Oh, virtual machines can be just as fast as physical ones." Not when you do stuff like this. There's still some tricks that you get that you only get in physical machines. Some people will say, well, what I could do is an always-on availability group, put a different VM on each node, and have him use local storage. Yeah, but then when the host dies, you're screwed. That whole thing fails over, and it's not.
Let's be honest. Whenever you hear about someone saying, "Oh, I made this machine so much faster by virtualizing," it's always like, I took a SQL 2000 box and I put it on modern hardware, and now it's miraculously faster. It's never, oh, I had two equivalent boxes sitting on SQL Server, let's say 2012. Keep it, sort of. Recent, and the one was virtual, one was physical, and they were both the same speed. No one ever says that. Everyone always is like, showing off about some really old application that they upgraded the hardware on. It's like, so I don't get it.
Yeah, usually much simpler setup than this too. I mean, one standalone server with tiny data, not as much of a problem.
Yeah.
All right. Justin wants to know how to punish his DBAs. What's the appropriate punishment for a production DBA who puts all the production databases into simple recovery mode? That's a no-no.
he has to use MySQL.
Yeah, oh, so there's a trick. Well,
Is that on the
right.
DBA? Does the business care? Come on. Why? Maybe you don't need full recovery model. Who cares about logging every transaction if you don't need point-in-time restore or anything more than a week's RPO goal, maybe?
Data warehouses when you're going to reload from scratch every day. Now, normally I would give Angie a gold star, but the only thing that I have is a gold screen protector. So
I will accept that.
yeah.
See, you start with a box, and then you put nails. Oh, I'm sorry.
Bad developer.
All right. Mike has a question, and he saw you in Houston last week.
Oh, cool.
Mike says, I'm hoping to convince my customers to let me pull the plug on index rebuilding MX plans temporarily in order to accumulate X amount of time of usage stats. What is the minimum amount of time you feel is sufficient? In Houston, you said to get a few weeks, but do you think that 1 week would be enough? One particular customer will be having anxiety attacks about not running index maintenance, though it's going to be a tough sell, so hoping maybe a week would be good enough.
Mike, I have phenomenal news. SQL Server 2012 had a series of cumulative updates come out yesterday that fix the index usage stats bug. So starting 2012 SP, whatever it is, if you go to SQLServerUpdates.com, if they're on SQL Server 2012, the latest update that came out yesterday for both the service pack and the one before the current service pack, so it's like CU3 and CU12, now lets SQL Server's index usage statistics persist. Missing index recommendations do not persist, but at least the usage stats do. So if they're on 2012, have them go get that. 2014, that fix is not out yet. So because the 2012 one came out, I feel I would be kind of like, well, I'm not going to pick that battle with my customers. I'll just go back and apply the 2014 CU.
So what I would do
when it comes out
is, since if you install the service pack, you may have to reboot anyway, which will clear out your stats anyway. What I would do is I would just scale my index maintenance back to only reorganized stuff, which doesn't wipe stats out, so that you can have stuff persist, and they still get their precious fragmentation lessened, and you get to collect statistics still, or usage statistics still.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Only rebuilding clears those out, to clarify. Like butter.
Since there's a fix for it, we can officially call it a bug now, right? Like it's not just a...
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
think.
it is.
That's how I call it, yeah.
You see, no, I have egg on my face because I've been telling people that 2012 wasn't going to get the fix because the original announcement about that change said 2014 and 2016 only. So, just omelet everywhere.
Speaking of 2016,
Oh.
since SQL 2016 for Linux is not scheduled for general release until 2017, have you heard of any preview versions available?
Silence is a no.
So the way that Microsoft does its preview type stuff is often people who have NDA or who get in early access programs get access to early betas. We are not in that program, but you can. We're not in the one for Linux. So we were in the one for 2016, as you can kind of tell when we bring out blog posts, and we have screenshots available to 5 minutes within the release coming out. So in terms of other people, though, what you want to do is get in contact with your Microsoft sales rep. If you don't have a sales rep or a TAM, a technical account manager, then you're probably not going to get into the program.
Wah, wah, wah.
Wah, wah, wah.
From Dennis, he says, does you guys have a good way to measure a 10 gigabyte iSCSI bandwidth to the SAN? This does not sound like a database engine question.
How do you guys like to do storage testing?
Crystal disk mark or disk speed.
There you go.
We have
So
posts
Crystal.
on both of them.
Crystal Disk Mark, yes, excellent. It's the easy button for storage testing. If you go to our site and grab Crystal Disk Mark, there's a post on exactly how to use it. And it's current with the current version of Crystal Disk Mark, too. They've changed the screenshots around.
Mm-hmm. All right. Fresh question from Jonathan. He says, from what I understand, there is no internal difference between a unique index and a unique constraint. Which one do y'all prefer and why?
Isn't there a difference?
Between a unique, well, a unique constraint is
You're driving
backed
me
by a
crazy.
unique index, right? All constraints are backed by indexes, basically. So, I mean,
Correlation,
difference.
not causation, or something.
I always thought it was syntactic sugar. That's. I could be
It
wrong.
is. Okay, if you go to Stack Exchange, if you go to dba.stackexchange.com, there's a question: when should I use a unique constraint instead of a unique index? And there are different, like for example, a unique constraint cannot be filtered. A unique index can be filtered. There's a bunch of little super tiny differences between unique constraint cannot be disabled, however unique index can be disabled. And I'll post this, I'll just put it in out on Twitter, what the difference is between these. So I'm going to tweet that right now.
And Andrew proved that even short questions can be answered on Stack Exchange if you don't get around to our webcast.
Yeah, the answers are huge. The answers are like pages long on this. People go into details.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's take one from Corey. He says, management would like the local AD domain name changed to reflect their new brand. We have a single SQL 2008 R2 database for document management. We have about 30 users. Is this realistic? Any gotchas? My background is not SQL, just a basic network admin.
It depends on whether or not you have a cluster. If you have a cluster, this is the part that sucks. But if you don't have a cluster, it's totally easy. It's a total piece of cake. What a lot of people do is just stand up a new domain and then move stuff across from one to the other, or a new forest. Eric's got an idea.
no, I don't have an idea. I just finally understood the question.
Oh.
Yeah, answering it for me, I was like, did you really just want to change the server name? Like, what do you?
No,
The
no,
domain-
it was confusing to me too. And I was like, just what? Huh? And then no, that's bad.
Yeah. So it is a giant pain in the rear. I was just at a company this past Monday, I guess, that had to go through that and was ginormous work for all the DBAs involved.
Brent, the green looks good on you. You stand out. Brent has this green wall behind him. He just painted the wall behind him green, and it's this bright, bright green, and it actually looks really good.
Oh, thank you. Usually it depends a lot on the webcam and how much sunlight is in here for a while. Sometimes I look like pale, alien pale, so yeah, got to get the right lights working.
Someone was asking.
Sometimes I look alien pale in the daylight too, as well. So
Sorry, funny
not
about
really
it.
an issue. Yeah. Yes,
All
we
right.
did that for the green screen effects that we use in our training videos. So, and Doug does the same thing down at his place. Has a wall set up so that he can make the background disappear. So it's called chroma keying. It's really fun.
Nice. Bruno had the SP Blitz question earlier. I think he has a follow-up. He says, can I ignore all the QDS weight types?
Yeah. Stands for query store. And you can totally ignore all the sales in the query store.
All right. Let's
There's
see.
a question from Dan that looks kind of interesting. I can read
Do
it
it.
if you don't feel like interesting. So he has a temp table in the store procedure, and it has 3 non-clustered indexes on it. But the execution plan is showing a table scan rather than hitting any of the non-clustered indexes. Now, what you could be looking at is you have these non-clustered indexes that may well satisfy a predicate like a where clause or a join or something, but they may not have enough included columns in them to tip the balance over to use those indexes rather than just scanning the entire table to get all the data. So if you're selecting all the columns in the table, but your where clause is only on a column or two, you may see that the optimizer chooses to scan the entire table because it's cheaper than hitting the non-clustered index and doing a key lookup back to get all the other columns out.
There you go.
So, start with a clustered index on a temp table rather than a non-clustered index. That's usually my rule of thumb.
All right.
Like it.
Great. Another question from Gregory. Is there a way to enforce the use of AG listeners in always-on availability groups versus just connecting directly to an instance?
Oh, wow. No. No, I
That's all
don't
I've
think
ever
so.
heard.
Wow, what a good question. I don't think so. Could you force? Yeah, I can't think of a way that you would be able to do that. No, other than being the obvious jerk and changing the names of your servers all the time so that people can't guess them that way. But yeah, I don't think there's a way to do that. That's really great. You should totally ask that on Stack Exchange, and then whether you get an answer or not, email us because I would like to hear about that and see if anybody comes up with an answer because I don't think
That's
you
pretty
can.
interesting.
So like I'm going to go out of the box. Maybe like if you use F5 global IPs or Impervas or Guardiums, those network appliances that sit in between your SQL Server and the network. But other than that, that would be it. Firewalls, stateful packet inspection. Gets
All
expensive.
right, let's do one more.
Okay.
From our buddy Nate. He's my friend today. Because there's not many people asking questions. It's like three people that are having at it.
I honor you guys to be Jessica's friend.
Yeah. I'm gonna add him on Facebook after this. He says this might be a shot in the dark, but have you guys ever worked with a client who's running Microsoft Dynamics Nav? If so, do you have any experience with migrating or upgrading the backing to SQL Server that's running the Nav databases?
How about you guys?
Nothing.
But we don't really
No,
help with migrating and upgrading clients' databases specifically, so
I don't know
not
that
on
we
a
really help
regular
with
basis.
anything.
Yeah.
don't even
Well,
know if
I
we
help
help
with
on
some
anything.
things.
Big hand wavy.
I pull all of the skeletons out of the closet, and then I set them up for Erik and Doug and Tara to beat them down a little bit.
So there's a good question in here that I want to get to. That's from Samuel, and he asks, I have a query that is less than the cost of parallelism, but is still giving a parallel plan. Why would this be? It's because it's not the cost of the parallel plan that has to exceed the cost threshold. It's the cost of the serial plan that has to exceed the cost threshold for parallelism. And the parallel plan has to be cheaper. So what you're seeing is a parallel plan that's cheaper than the serial plan that crossed the cost threshold.
Dun, dun, dun. Extremely good.
Let's leave on that note.
So you can see what the cost of the serial one was by going option max op 1 in the query. Then you'll get an idea. Unless it's a stored procedure, that gets a little trickier.
Yep.
Cool beans.
Good question.
I'm hungry. My stomach is growling.
Ooh, where are you going for lunch?
I'm getting some Uber Eats. That's great. Unless you want to go somewhere, you're right down the street today.
Oh yeah, no, I'm good. I'm gonna, I think, just phone in and have something else delivered here as well. So.
Yeah, Uber Eats is awesome. 3 minutes, hot meal.
That's crazy.
Very cool.
I've got to go to FedEx and drop off a computer. Thanks, Brent.
Oh, Richie chose poorly, not chose wisely. Yes, his machine. I hope they don't ruin your stickers. All right, well, thanks everybody, and we will see you next week.